This movie isn't even worth the effort. It's really not. Why would it be? You all know this movie is bad. 2.2 on IMDb. The unweighted score, at least, which means the score that hasn't been tampered with. And as far as Google users go, 16%. That's what we're dealing with here. I haven't seen numbers that bad since Marmaduke, which I know was only a couple of years ago, but still. You know what's funny? Just yesterday, I've recently been showing my brother the TV show Avatar: The Last Airbender, which many people, including myself, will tell you is one of the best animated shows of all time. I didn't watch it until I was 17, so I don't have a ton of nostalgia for it, but now I'm showing it to my brother, who's 10 years old. And he obviously also wanted to see the live-action movie, because when you're that age, you like seeing stuff in live action. It's, even if the movie's bad or the show is bad, it's cool to see something you've watched be done in live action. I've been suckered into this too. I've seen that stuff that aren't that great, like G.I. Joe: The Rise of Cobra. I used to love when I was a kid. It's not that good anymore. But that's besides the point. So I showed him the live action The Last Airbender yesterday. And I will be one to tell you that I think it was overhyped in the wrong way. Like, I've been hearing it's one of the worst movies ever made, and when I eventually saw it a few years ago, I'm like, yes, it's a bad movie, but it's not one of the worst, purely because I think just it was, again, overhyped in the wrong way. But, again, getting off topic. First of all, my brother actually thought that he thought the movie was bad, so if your movie is that bad that a 10-year-old doesn't like it, then you're in trouble. But the point I'm getting at here is that this movie makes M. Night Shyamalan's The Last Airbender look like Avengers Endgame. No, I'm serious. And the title was not a clickbait title. I legitimately walked out of this movie. And I did say in the last video I made on this, when it was first coming out, that I said I would not watch this movie if I had to pay for it. And I did not, because the theater closest to me, well, not the theater closest to me, but the closest one that was playing this, literally had free screenings going on because nobody wanted to watch it. No, I'm serious. And I don't even know how far I got into this movie, although I will say I got further into this movie than Cheaper by the Dozen or One Up from a couple years ago, so... But again, those were streaming movies, so I could shut those off whenever I wanted. This one I tried to power through, and I couldn't do it. And I feel like I don't even need to explain why. Again, I can tell you, if you don't know anything about this movie, you've been living under a rock and you don't know what this movie's about, I can tell you the basic premise of this movie, and you would understand why I walked out. So, let's try it. The main character, named Aaron, is recruited to something called the American Society of Magical Negroes, which is basically a society of magical black people whose entire jobs is making white people's lives easier. Was that enough for you? I feel like it should be. So, this movie was easily mocked online as one of the most racist movies to ever be released. Again, even before it was released, like, I talked about this movie a couple of times. I talked about it when it was first announced, and I talked about it when it was scheduled to bomb big time. I don't even think it made the top 10 in terms of its opening weekend. That is embarrassing. Top 10 if you can't break the top 10 for an opening weekend, yes, I know it obviously wasn't going to make the top 5 when you had stuff like Dune and Kung Fu Panda and all these bigger movies that were out. Godzilla vs. Kong wasn't out its opening weekend yet. But there were other bigger movies that were out. But it still couldn't even crack the top 10. Or maybe it was like number 10, if at best. It was either 10 or 11. I don't think it cracked the top 10. And again, this wasn't like it was an extremely wide release, like it was released in like 4,000 theaters. I think it was released in like 1,100 theaters. But if your movie can't crack the top 10... when most of the top 10 were movies that were released in, like, December, like, I think Wonka was still in the top 10 over this movie. That's pathetic. I think up to this point, it's made about $2 million. And I think Godzilla and Kong 2 made that in about a couple of hours. Because its opening weekend was freaking huge. And I will be seeing that this weekend, I would tell you that. But there's other movies I want to get to first. Like, I have this, I got Ghostbusters, I got just several other movies that I haven't gotten around to yet. I may still see Dune, I don't know, I don't really care much about that movie. But again, I feel like I don't even need to explain why this movie is bad, but I'm going to do it anyway, and I'm just going to go a quick rundown, because again, this movie deserves as little effort as possible, and it was so bad to the point where I didn't even finish it. Again, the acting is not that great, and Justice Smith is a good actor. He's been in some great stuff like Detective Pikachu and not Ghostbusters, Dungeons & Dragons, Honor Among Thieves. He clearly doesn't care. None of the other actors are really trying in this movie. And this movie won an award for directors to watch for Kobe Libby or whatever the fuck this guy's name is. Really? The directing in this is mundane at best. I know this is the guy's first effort, but maybe you should have done a movie that wasn't objectively racist garbage that was going to get you mocked on the internet as your first project. Or maybe this was the only project I wanted to hire him. I don't know. The special effects are laughably bad. I would be shocked if this movie had a budget over $50 million. My estimate was that this movie had a budget of about $35 to $50 million, even though I couldn't find it anywhere. But I believe that was my estimate. It was somewhere between 35 and 50 million. That's still no excuse for this shit CGI, because it's not like they have any big-name actors. And I know that the joke going through Hollywood nowadays is that all these big-budget movies have shitty CGI, like Honor Among Thieves, which also had Justice Smith, The Flash, The Little Mermaid, all these big-budget movies had such shitty CGI. But I've made a point of saying that it seems like the smaller-budget movies seem to have better effects. You know what, hell, just today they released a trailer for that Bambi the Reckoning, and while that looks awful, I'll be doing a short on that later today, probably. Bambi himself actually looks pretty cool. It actually looks like it's there. How did they pull that off there? But here, even just a teleporting effect, where it's just them disappearing from screen and reappearing somewhere else, one of the least advanced effects you can get, looks like garbage. It looks like it cuts in between them being there and them being gone. Like, they tried their damnedest to edit it to the point where it looks like they actually did teleport, but no. It legitimately looks like there's a cut in between there. The editing is not very good. This, honestly, it's from what I talked about in my last video on this movie, it seemed like the reviews were complaining that this movie wasn't woke enough. Like, it didn't go all out, that it wasn't just every second bitching about white people. I mean, there was plenty of that from the little bit that I saw of this movie. I mean, I got probably halfway through this movie. I have honestly no idea how much was left in the movie when I walked out. But I honestly couldn't care less. This is the fourth movie in the entire time I've been doing this channel that I haven't been able to finish. I finished, as bad as it was, I finished Zack Snyder's Justice League, and that was 4 hours. And I think the only reason I was able to finish it was because it was a comic book movie, no matter how bad it was. Usually I'm able to finish comic book movies, but the only ones I have not been able to finish are Tom and Jerry, which honestly, if I really, really tried, I could probably stomach the last 15 minutes of that, and that was just the last 15 minutes. This movie, which I got maybe halfway through, this isn't that long of a movie. It's like an hour 40 maybe, and I got, I don't know, 40 minutes in, maybe 45. One Up, which I got about 10 minutes into, and then Cheaper by the Dozen, which I shut off after about 1 minute. And those are some really shitty movies this is in company with. And again, I finished movies like Barbie, The Little Mermaid, Zack Snyder's Justice League. I finished Songbird. You know, that COVID movie made by Michael Bay, or produced by Michael Bay. I finished that, and I couldn't finish this movie. That should tell you all you need to know. Because this movie is just some shitty rom-com that bitches about white people the entire time. Why would I want to watch this? Is there anything else left to talk about other than the fact that this movie has just been getting destroyed online? And honestly, it was getting destroyed online up until its release. After it's released, it seemed to have disappeared. I haven't seen anybody talk about this since the movie released. And you know what? For good reason. This movie should not be talked about that much. I refuse to talk about this movie again. I know I do my cinematic disasters, which I've been trying to get back to, but I've been a little busy. Today I'm planning to do a film face-offs. We'll see if that actually comes up today or tomorrow. We'll find out. But either way, this movie obviously gets an F. Again, I didn't even need to talk about, all I had to do for this video was tell you the premise, if you didn't know what it was already, tell you the premise, tell you I walked out, tell you my grade, and that should tell you all you need to know. Because that's what this movie is. This movie doesn't deserve the effort, because there's clearly no effort put in. So why should, I think I'm putting more effort into this review than the people who made this movie put into the actual movie. So that honestly, that makes me feel bad, that I put more effort in to reviewing this movie than they put into making it. That kind of pisses me off. So I'm just gonna end the video here, and I will see y'all next time. Bye.